All right, guys, welcome back into another fantasy football video. Going to be going over which players in fantasy football drafts, whether it be best ball or redraft leagues. Going to be touching on which players are just easy picks, like 5 players that just when they pop up on your draft board, when they're about to come up, these players are going to be just easy plug and click players. Okay, we're going to start off with the first player, the cover boy, just to make it simple on you guys. That's going to be Adam Thielen. So Adam Thielen, on average last year, was a top 15 fantasy football receiver, although currently he's going as the 24th best receiver on ADPs, whether it be best balls. I see him go a little bit later, actually, in best balls and regular season drafts. So for me, Adam Thielen this year, sure, he's getting up there in age, 31, but he is still a great target for you guys. And the thing on top of it is this offense is expected to throw it even more this season than they have in prior years. So maybe a little bit more production there in the passing game, not only for Adam Thielen, but for this whole Minnesota Vikings offense. That is highly intriguing to me. We look at what he did last year for the 12 games. He averaged 7.9 targets, so basically 10 targets per game. He had 5.6 receptions per game. Yards was about 60 yards per game, and then he did have a lot of TDs, about 0.3 TDs per game. So maybe that TDs falls off a little bit, but those yards and the receptions might go up a little bit more. Still, Adam Thielen being drafted at receiver 24, that is just too good to pass up on. Now we're going to switch it off into Christian Kirk. I absolutely love Christian Kirk in fantasy football drafts this season. Why? They brought him in to be the receiver #1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And all the reports coming out of camp thus far are saying that he has looked the part. He has been the player that they brought him in to be. Right now, he's currently going around like pick 100 overall and currently being drafted as the receiver 40, which is insane. So last year, he finished as the receiver 26, which I would say that is going to be his floor again. On average, he scored 9.4 fantasy points per game in a half-point PPR. If he just does that again, he's going to finish as the receiver 40. So he is being drafted at his current floor, which to me, I love that. So basically, you're getting a guy that you can draft at his floor, but really has a strong chance to easily finish in the top 10. Maybe not top 10, top 20, and could finish in the top 10. Regardless, you're getting a player that should have a safe floor. They want to use him kind of like DJ Moore a little bit. I think that would be a good example of how he's been used out. DJ Moore is a fine player. I think that's going to be how they try to use Christian Kirk. Now getting into the next receiver, it is going to be JAKOBI Meyers. So JAKOBI Meyers is kind of the same player as Christian Kirk, just at a lesser extent. Now, the New England Patriots did bring in Devonta Parker. I don't think that's going to change JAKOBI Meyers' role really at all. Okay, on average, he saw 7.4 targets per game, and he scored 8.5 fantasy points per game and a half-point PPR. I really don't see that changing. But if you look at his game log, like, it is very solid and very consistent. That is what we want to look at. So, like, in those 16 starts that he had last year, about 12 of those were extremely consistent production. We can see the point spread there not being that different. Maybe like this one bad game in there, and everything else is really relatively the same. He had a couple of spike weeks, 18 points, 16.8, 21.3, 14.9, 14.8, like a couple of spike weeks there. But for the most part, extremely consistent player. And he is basically going as someone that's either almost getting undrafted in best ball leagues, or like you can get him in the 4th to 5th to 6th last round. JAKOBI Meyers is an extremely interesting player to draft, not only because he gives you some safety in best ball drafts and redraft leagues. He's an extremely consistent player. The targets were there, the points were there, the projections were there. If he gets a little bit more TDs, you can see only 2 TDs on the season, he could easily have a huge breakout season. Kind of think like Melvin Gordon his rookie year, where he looked good on film, the production wasn't exactly there, had like 3 touchdowns, called back. That's kind of JAKOBI Meyers. If the touchdowns get there, he's going to be an extremely interesting target, I think, in fantasy football drafts. And really, look at those 3 receivers: Adam Thielen, Christian Kirk, JAKOBI Meyers. There are 3 receivers that are going just way too late. They make your fantasy football drafts much easier if you just target those guys, especially when you're looking for safety and consistency there. Another player like that is actually going to be Ryan Tannehill here. Now, I know people are not going to like this. This is not sexy, okay? But last year, he finished as a top 12 quarterback, okay? And that's really been the theme for him in 2021. Finished as QB7. In 2020, finished as QB10. Like, that is just Ryan Tannehill. He's a very extremely consistent player. We look at his game log as well. That is just what he is, fantasy points-wise. Like, extremely consistent player. We can see a lot of his starts, except for 2 of them, or except for 3 of them, were over 10 DK points per game. Now, that's not a lot, but at the very least, that's not going to hurt you. And we know what happened last year. Derrick Henry got injured. Julio Jones was injured. A.J. Brown had his injury troubles as well. And he was still able to produce fantasy points. Now, obviously, that offense should be a little bit more healthy. I know A.J. Brown's gone. I know Julio's gone. But they should be a little bit more healthy, which should lead to a little bit more consistency for Ryan Tannehill this season. And guys, he's currently being drafted as QB 24. And like in best ball leagues, you can get him as like your third QB if you want to go that route. And you're going to get a guy that's going to give you about like 8 starts or so, or could give you about 8 starts or so. At the very least, you know you're getting a consistent quarterback that's not going to hurt you. He might not help you a lot, but at the very least, you're getting a quarterback that's going to at least be a neutral for you. And maybe have a couple of spike weeks, like basically a free square. You can get in a starting quarterback that on average has been a top 10 quarterback over the last 3 years since he's joined the Titans as a starter. I love that. And then just talking about Willis, like he doesn't seem like a threat. He was brought in to be a backup. Okay, we're not too worried about him at all. Okay, now we're looking at Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz as a tight end, I absolutely love, guys. So he's currently being drafted as tight end number 10, which is probably right. Like at the end of the season, if he ends up as a tight end number 10, it wouldn't be too shocking. But that'd mean that the other tight ends in the league stepped up and didn't really get injured. So the appeal of Zach Ertz is going to be that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be out the first 6 games. And we saw what Zach Ertz did with DeAndre Hopkins out last year. He averaged 10.7 targets per game and 7 receptions over the last 4 weeks last year, which ended up finishing as a top 5 tight end, top 5 tight end over that stretch. Like that is insanely good. I absolutely love that from him. Just the fact that he's currently being drafted as a top 10 tight end when he could easily finish top 5, top 6, like no one's going to question that. And the thing about it is with Zach Ertz, the talent really hasn't fallen off. It's a pass-heavy offense, and they're going to need to rely on him for, about the first 6 weeks. To me, Zach Ertz, highly appealing fantasy football asset to go after in your fantasy football drafts. Now, hopefully that made sense for you guys. Just 5 really easy draft picks when you're making your fantasy football draft. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did, please give me a like, subscribe. I do appreciate that. If you guys want to join 9 to 5 Nation, best value in PGA or best value in fantasy football. That's a bad send off. That's a send off that I do for my PGA DFS content. But this is just a fantasy football video. I apologize for that. But yeah, please give me a like, subscribe, guys. All right, thanks for watching.